Folks, good morning, good afternoon. Thank you, Malcolm, for that session, taking a little peek into the future of MDM. This next session with Brian Zenk of Nestlé Purina, we're going to look into the art of the possible with what a real team is doing right now with MDM, making a big difference for their organizations. I'm really excited for this keynote. I think we've worked with Brian and his team over time, and they're doing just a tremendous job. I think what they're doing is one of the benchmark excellent case studies that we have of really the art of the possible. So in this session, Brian's going to talk a little bit about what they're doing from an organizational perspective in order to bring MDM and data management to life in the Purina group of Nestle. And I think a lot of what they've done there really is thought leading, both in terms of what they're able to deliver for Purina, but also what they're able to deliver as thought leaders in terms of capability for the whole of Nestle. People across Nestle are seeking them out and seeking their advice on how they can copy and learn from some thought leaders there. So some organizational discussion of how they're doing that, some discussion of what they're doing in terms of technology, including governance and, of course, MDM. And then really interestingly and importantly, what they're able to deliver in terms of real benefit and value for their organization. So this session should have something for everybody. It should be inspirational in terms of hearing what real data heroes are doing right now. Important for all you data heroes and aspiring data heroes out there. So over to you, Brian.
Thank you, Prophecy, for having me speak at the Data Heroes Summit. I'm delighted to be here. My name is Brian Zenk. I'm Vice President of Data Science at Nestlé Purina Pet Care, headquartered in St. Louis, Missouri. And I'm delighted to have the opportunity to speak to you today about our journey with data and analytics and data governance and master data, all topics that I'm very passionate about. Let me introduce our agenda for the day, and really I'm going to be speaking to you about the journey that we've taken at Nestlé Purina Pet Care over the last 2.5 years. It started with a comprehensive strategy engagement in the year 2020, and then we've been bringing that strategy to life since that time, really for the last 2.5 years. And we're going to get a chance to kind of talk to you about what we did and where we're headed with our organization and our ways of working, but also our point of view with respect to data governance and master data management and all of these things. So delighted to be here. So first off, we had to think about how to answer a question at Purina a couple of years ago. And the question was, given the resources we have, how would we drive growth in our business, in our North American business? And for my team, the answer, really the fundamental part of the answer, is to actually be part of the business. And so I have the pleasure of leading a team called theHive. I helped create the organization over the last 2.5 years. And I'll tell you all about theHive in this presentation, but theHive is positioned as a business function within Purina. We sit adjacent to other business functions at Purina, and the difference is our domain expertise is data and analytics. We even try to hire business associates into theHive whenever we can. And I would say at this point, the majority of our product owners and many of our business analysts came to theHive with extensive business experience, gained at Purina or gained outside Purina, but in those business roles. One thing I'd like to mention is theHive is not an IT organization. Some of us spent big portions of our career in IT, but theHive is not an IT organization. We do work very closely with Nestle IT, and it's a great relationship we have with them, and they enable us to be successful through infrastructure, technologies, and frameworks, and to some degree data, especially for centralized systems at Nestle, like our SAP system. We refer to that as SAP data liberation. getting the data out so that we can act upon it and answer business questions with it. So finally, I'd like to say that the Hive is where business, technology, data, and analytics expertise all come together on one team with one shared mission. So the main goal of the Hive is to be a trusted business partner for the functions at Purina. And it's really critical these days. Data and analytics are more important now to the success of our Purina business than they ever were before. And the Hive is a key part of the ongoing effort to create a seamless user experience in finding the data we have, managing it, learning about it, and being able to access and leverage it for the betterment of the business. I mentioned a moment ago, the Hive is where business and technology people come together on the same team with a shared mission. The Hive has two main parts. The first part is to own and facilitate the programs and processes needed for the organization in order to build a trusted data foundation. We'll focus mostly on this part today. I would say before we pursued our strategy in 2020, ownership of these programs and processes was not clear. And that's a big change we've made in the last 2.5 years. The second part of our mission is to provide the tools and capabilities to the entire organization in order to enable the business to leverage the data assets that we have. This is a big change that we've made. I'll be talking about that in a few minutes. I would say this is how we amplify the impact the Hive can have on the organization, is by empowering the entire organization to consume our data assets and to leverage them to drive business. These programs are essential in order for Nestle Purina to become AI enabled at scale. And I'll talk more about that too. We don't think we could ever be AI enabled at scale if our data assets are siloed. And this is where data governance and master data management are critical to our long-term success and our aspiration to be an AI enabled at scale company. So one of the big things we did is we changed the operating model for data and analytics at Nestle Purina Pet Care. And so we think about it like a wheel, and the Hive sits at the center of a data and analytics network that we've built at Purina. So the Hive is the hub. And currently we have over a dozen business functions at Purina that have smaller teams of data and analytics professionals embedded in them. We call these the spokes. They're the spokes around the outside of the wheel. A few key points about the spokes, questions that I often get asked. The people in the spokes are funded by the functions themselves, not by us. And typically, the folks that are on those teams have deep business expertise. Typically, they started out in a key business role, and they're people that tend to be really interested in data and very curious people. And so what we see as normally they're very savvy with citizen development tools, such as the Microsoft Power Platform is the main one we use here. So what I'll say about this, this data and analytics network that we have, the magic, it's the combination of the Hive and the spokes together. One thing I think is somewhat novel about the Hive is that we've built an enablement and literacy practice within the structure. And in essence, this allows us to create demand for the data products that we build. So we focus on data, building proper consumable data products. Again, we'll talk a lot more about that in this session. At the same time, we help elevate the skills and enable people across the entire enterprise to leverage those consumable data products. And so in essence, we're creating demand for the things that we produce. Beyond the data and analytics spokes that you see here, we've also created a community of practice. Recently, we've surpassed the magic number of having 500 people as members across the enterprise. This is a community that's self-sustaining It's an online community, but it also conducts interactive live sessions twice per month. And I would say, if you're thinking about establishing an enablement and literacy practice at your company, I highly recommend it. It's one of the best things we ever did. And I would say 3.5 years ago, we had no idea we needed it. And today we can't imagine living without a data and analytics community of practice. So I want to talk about how the Hive is organized. So there's two ways to think about it. There's the way we're organized internally, and then the way that our stakeholders see us. So how we're organized internally are practice guilds. Practice guilds are used to develop people and to develop their skills within certain disciplines. We've got a product management practice, data engineering, technology and architecture, AI and machine learning, the enablement and literacy practice that I mentioned. And then we also have an agile practice, which is kind of the glue that holds it all together. And then over on the right, we have the swarms. Swarms are multidisciplinary teams that deliver products and services to our stakeholders. The swarms are composed of individuals from the practice guilds. And so our stakeholders interact with the swarms on a regular basis. We have two kinds of swarms. First, we have business aligned swarms. Those are the ones that deliver products and services to clusters of adjacent business functions. And then we have enablement swarms. Those swarms deliver products and services to the business aligned swarms in the Hive and also the entire enterprise as needed. Again, I'll point out that we've got a swarm dedicated to enablement and literacy, which focuses on our citizen development community. And how that works, it's primarily a co-development situation where our enablement and literacy swarm will co-develop citizen-led, citizen-developed solutions. I like to think of it as like going fishing. You go fishing with someone who knows how to do it. They teach you how to fish, and then you can go fishing on your own, and you don't need them anymore. And then in an ideal world, you'll even teach other people how to fish in the longer run. And that's the model we have. It's been very successful. So talked a lot about the group that I lead at Nestlé Purina called the Hive, and our ways of working. Now we're going to talk about data. So here's a quote from Gartner, and we agree with it, of course. MDM initiatives have continued to progress as a foundational component of digital transformation. We've agreed with that for a while, and in more recent years, we've learned how to make a reality or turn it into a reality. So one thing I would say is at Purina, we believe that master data management is a foundational component of our digital transformation. So we agree with Gartner on that point. Further, I would say we see data at the core of our digital transformation strategy. And in turn, we see master data management is at the core of our data strategy. Again, data is the core of digital transformation strategy. MDM is at the core of our data strategy. Let's get into our point of view at Nestlé Purina Pet Care on how to build a data foundation. And so first off, we see data governance going hand in hand with master data management. Data governance is where we define standards for our data sources, and master data management is where we enforce those standards. We've been leveraging processes since early 2022. And we had, at that point, and prior to that point, we had a set of requirements in mind when we set out to choose a master data management tool and a data governance tool. So whatever tool that we were going to choose, it had to be adaptive to our needs, not the other way around. And it had to be easy to implement and use. It wasn't a situation where we wanted to buy additional components and additional tools to add new data domains. We always intended to scale this out over time. And so based on the criteria that we had, Prophecy stood out as the best fit for our needs. we build most of our data assets on Microsoft Azure, the Hive does, and we found that Prophecy, Master Data Management, and Microsoft Purview are natural fits for us. I don't know if I mentioned it, but Microsoft Purview is our data catalog technology, and we see Purview and Prophecy as complementing each other really well, and so that was a great fit for us. One learning I'd like to share is that in 2021, right after we started to bring our strategy to life for data and analytics at Purina, we initially tried to establish data governance using a top-down approach, which I think is very common for companies to try that, and it certainly could work at some companies. It didn't work here. The reason it didn't work is there was just very little interest from business folks because they didn't see how it would add value to them. And what they would ask is, why should we put bandwidth and time and money to this instead of the other things we normally do? And so the tipping point for us was master data management. Our business partners could see the value proposition of having MDM in place. And it's what allowed us to get traction within our organization on business data stewardship, because for the first time, our business partners started to see a reason to engage in data governance. And the reason is that they saw how it enabled us to have a single source of truth, and they knew that was valuable to them. You may have seen this at your shop. You're lucky if you haven't seen this at your shop, but where there may be multiple versions of truth for the same data set. And unfortunately, sometimes it's in Excel workbooks owned by different business people, right? And that's a situation we've seen, and even our key business stakeholders see that as a big risk, a big business risk. And that's one of the reasons they were happy to embrace master data management, and in partnership with that, they were willing to embrace business data stewardship in order to get it. So let's look at a simple workflow for how data governance and MDM platforms come into play. So we're looking at a representative architecture similar to what we use at Nestlé Purina Pet Care. I'm sure this is fairly typical and representative of architectures that you use. So we have many sources of data, too many to name, frankly, including things like SAP, Salesforce, many others. In our case, we bring those into a data lake with standard tools like Azure Data Factory. We use Databricks to build consumable data products from that data in the data lake so that we can expose it in a consumable way. In some cases, we have citizen developers and data scientists that access that layer in Databricks. In other cases, it flows into Power BI for dashboarding and traditional reporting. And then something that's not shown here is it also hooks into other ecosystems like our consumer-facing marketing ecosystem to help with real-time activation. The thing is, though, without having master data management and data governance tooling in place, this architecture is great. It helps us do things faster than we ever could before, but the data could still be wrong, right? So if we don't align the data across multiple data sources, then we're probably still not able to drive trust in the data products that we're delivering. We need the data to be correct. And so the key for us is to have Prophecy Master Data Management and Microsoft Purview in place, which then allows us to deliver consumable data products that our business partners can really start to trust and leverage. So let's talk a little bit about some of the examples of using master data management at Nestlé Purina Pet Care. So the first MDM project that we embarked on was to master veterinarians and vet clinics across a number of different data sources. This went live earlier this year, actually early in Q1, and it was for a couple of 100,000 clinics across the United States. What I would say is the key to this is that Prophecy enabled us to build a golden record around vets and vet clinics, and that enabled us to integrate data across those multiple data sources. And really, this is the key to being able to unlock our data assets in ways that we were not able to before. In this case, some of those examples are, the ability to predict future behaviors and outcomes, optimizing logistics and delivery costs, enabling vet loyalty programs. Like I said, this was a couple 100,000 clinics. Our business stakeholders are telling us this will be a key to enabling significant revenue growth over the next 2 years. So that's the one we cut our teeth on. And then the next one that we pursued was a consumer and pet 360 data warehouse. And that went live in Q2 of this year. It's roughly 200 times larger than the first one we did. Our friends at Prophecy tell us this is kind of on the large side for an MDM solution. And I would say the primary value here is in being able to connect, frankly, dozens of data sources across the consumer journey in order to tell a unified story. So now we can make connections and drive new engagement in consumer relationships. So again, the key, being able to build a golden consumer record in this case in Prophecy allows us to unlock the value potential of our data assets in ways that we really couldn't before. Some examples here: more effective media targeting, right? Building effective audiences for the ad campaign, proactive customer service. And the reason is that we would have the ability now to see a single consumer across different products and services that we offer. And so we can also make better predictions of consumer behaviors and outcomes and leverage our data assets to help consumers be their best pet parents. That's one of the terms we use around here, right? Our job is to help our consumers be their best pet parent self. So now, where do we go? Where do we go next with master data management? We've got many candidates. Quite a few use cases in the queue. I would say product and pricing is one idea that just keeps coming up again and again because it impacts almost every business function in the company. The key on that one is to have the ability to have common standardized data, and that would be the enabler that would open up the door to avoid all the siloed spreadsheets that we have across departments and sometimes even within departments across the enterprise. And as I mentioned before, when you have that, there's a couple of side effects. One is the potential for human error, which is a big business risk potentially. And also, it really holds us back from our aspirations for AI and machine learning at scale that I mentioned before. You can't really do that if your data assets are siloed. And so one thing that our business stakeholders see clearly is that we need to have one version of the truth in order to become a company that's AI enabled at scale and to get the full value out of our data assets. Again, we can't do that when our core data assets are siloed. So where are we going? I talked about the organization and ways of working that we've built over the last 2.5 years at Nestlé Purina Pet Care. And I talked about our journey on data governance and master data management. But where next? So like you, we're looking to the future, and events like the Data Heroes Summit really help us continue to build upon our understanding of things that are happening in the industry, right? Like data fabric, data mesh, data observability, AI enabled everything, and probably some things we don't even see coming yet. I'm gonna confess that we didn't see generative AI coming very far in advance. We weren't talking about generative AI a year ago, and now I would say people like me at Nestle Purina spend at least 50% of our time on generative AI, right? And so the question is, how can we leverage this operating model that we've built with the Hive and our data and analytics network at Purina, and then leveraging the technologies that like Prophecy and Purview in order to build this strong data governance platform that we have in place. How can that help us, react and embrace the future of data management? And we feel like the things we've done almost help future-proof us in that way. That'll never be perfect, but instead of having to blow up our organization when the next thing like generative AI comes along, we just adjust. And that's been proven out in the last year with generative AI, as a matter of fact. Our model didn't break, our tools didn't break, and honestly, we have a strong belief that no matter what comes along in the future, it'll be dependent on a solid data foundation. And so the work we're doing today positions us well for whatever comes down the road in the next couple of years. And again, I would like to thank Prophecy for the opportunity to speak at the Data Heroes Summit. I'm very proud of what we've done at Nestle Purina Pet Care over the last 2.5 years, and really appreciate the opportunity to speak here. Thank you.